Something is gripping your jaw right now. And it's not stress. It's not anxiety. It's not even something your dentist can see. It's a silent lock, an invisible force that tightens when you suppress what you truly feel, when you hold back words you were meant to say, when generations before you passed down tension your body was never designed to carry. And tonight, that lock is being broken, not slowly, not over months, but in a sudden, almost shocking release that many are already feeling across the world at this exact moment. If you've been clenching, grinding, waking up with pain, or catching yourself holding your jaw tight for no reason, this message found you for a reason. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes you may feel something shift that you've been unknowingly waiting for your entire life. And if you feel even the slightest release, comment on Locked, like this video, share it with someone who needs this, and subscribe. Because what's happening tonight is only the beginning. You didn't notice when it started. Because it never begins loudly. It begins in silence, in the small moments when you swallow your words instead of speaking them, when you tighten your smile instead of expressing what's real, when you nod instead of saying no, when you carry the weight of expectations that were never yours to begin with. And slowly, without warning, your body begins to adapt to this suppression, storing it in places you don't consciously monitor, places like your shoulders, your neck, and most powerfully, your jaw, the very hinge between what you feel and what you express. And over time, that hinge stops flowing freely. It stiffens, it hardens, it begins to hold tension like a clenched fist that never fully relaxes. And at first it's subtle, just a slight tightness when you wake up, a faint soreness near your temples, maybe a dull ache that you dismiss as nothing serious, but then it evolves, it deepens. You start waking up feeling like you've been fighting something all night long. Your teeth feel different, like they've been under pressure. Your jaw feels tired. Your head feels heavy, and someone might even tell you that you grind your teeth in your sleep, that they can hear it, that unsettling sound of friction that echoes through the quiet of the night. But what they don't understand, and what you may not fully realize yet, is that this isn't just a physical habit. It's a signal, a message from your body that something deeper is locked, something unspoken, something unresolved, something energetically held in place. And the more you ignore it, the more automatic it becomes. Until one day you catch yourself clenching in the middle of the day, not because anything stressful is happening, but because your system has learned to hold tension as a default state, as if it's bracing for something that never arrives. And that's when it crosses the line from occasional discomfort into a pattern, a loop that feeds itself, where the more you clench, the more your muscles tighten, and the more they tighten, the more natural it feels to stay that way, creating a cycle that continues even when you're asleep. Even when your conscious mind is offline, your jaw remains active, grinding, pressing, holding, resisting, as if it's trying to release something but doesn't know how. And this is where most people turn to surface-level solutions, mouth guards, medications, temporary fixes that treat the symptom but never touch the source. Because the source isn't just mechanical, it's energetic, it's emotional, it's deeply embedded in the patterns you've carried for years, maybe even lifetimes. And here's the part that changes everything, the part that most will dismiss until they feel it for themselves. There is a frequency to your body, a subtle field that governs how your muscles behave, how your nervous system responds, how tension is stored and released. And when that frequency becomes distorted, when it gets locked into a pattern of holding instead of flowing, your physical body follows that command without question. Your jaw doesn't just tighten randomly, it responds to that underlying signal, that invisible instruction telling it to hold, to brace, to protect. And for a long time, that signal has gone uninterrupted, looping quietly beneath your awareness, reinforcing the clenching, reinforcing the grinding, reinforcing the idea that this is just how things are now. But tonight something different is happening, something that doesn't rely on force or effort or conscious control, something that bypasses the need to fix or try or figure it out. Because what's being targeted isn't the muscle itself, it's the signal behind it, the frequency that's been holding it in place. And as that begins to shift, even slightly, the effects ripple outward. First subtly, then unmistakably, like a locked door that suddenly clicks open after years of being stuck. And you may not believe it yet. You may still think this is just another explanation. another idea, another perspective. But as you continue to listen, as you allow yourself to become aware of your jaw right now, as you notice whether your teeth are touching or slightly apart, whether there's tension you hadn't acknowledged until this moment, something begins to change. Not because you're forcing it, but because your awareness itself is starting to interrupt the pattern. And that interruption is the first crack in the lock. The first sign that what felt permanent was never truly fixed in place. It was just waiting for the right signal to release. And that signal is closer than you think, already moving, already reaching you, already beginning to soften what has been rigid for far too long. Right now, before you try to analyze anything, bring your awareness back to your jaw, not to change it, not to fix it, but simply to notice it. Because most of the time the tension lives there unnoticed, operating in the background like a program that was never turned off. And the moment you observe it, something subtle begins to shift. You may feel how your teeth are positioned. Maybe they're touching. Maybe they're pressing lightly. Maybe there's a constant micro-clench that you've normalized over time. And this is where the real understanding begins. Because your jaw is not just a joint, it is one of the most neurologically sensitive areas in your body, directly linked to your nervous system, your fight-or-flight response, your emotional suppression patterns, and even your sense of safety. And when your system perceives unresolved tension, whether emotional, mental, or even inherited through repeated behavioral conditioning, it channels that into physical holding, and the jaw becomes a primary storage site. Not randomly, but because it sits at the intersection of expression and restraint. What you say versus what you hold back, what you feel versus what you allow yourself to release, and over time, this creates what can only be described as an energetic knot, a layered buildup of microtension that reinforces itself every single day. And here's where the value deepens, because understanding this changes how you approach the problem entirely. Instead of fighting the clenching, you begin to realize that your body is not malfunctioning. It is communicating. It is trying to maintain control in a system that has learned to suppress release. And the grinding at night is not just a random habit. It is your body's attempt to process what was not released during the day. It is movement trying to break through stagnation, friction trying to dissolve a lock. And when you see it this way, you stop treating your body like the enemy and start recognizing it as an intelligent system that has been doing its best with the signals it was given. And this is exactly why surface-level solutions fail long-term, because they attempt to silence the expression without changing the underlying instruction. But tonight, the focus shifts from suppression to release, from control to allowance. And here is something you can do right now that most people have never been taught. Gently let your lips touch, but allow your teeth to separate slightly, even if it's just a millimeter. Don't force it, just invite that space, and as you do this, place your tongue softly on the roof of your mouth. Not pressing, just resting, and take a slow breath in through your nose, and as you exhale, imagine that the tension in your jaw is not something you have to push out, but something that is already loosening on its own, like a knot that is slowly unraveling without effort, and you may notice resistance. That's normal, because your system is used to holding, but stay with it, because this is where the real shift begins. And here's the deeper insight that changes everything. Your nervous system responds more to permission than to force. The more you try to unclench, the more your body interprets that as effort, as control, as another form of tension. But when you allow, when you give it permission to release without pressure, it begins to downregulate, to move out of that constant state of micro-alertness. And as that happens, the muscles around your jaw, your temples, your cheeks, even your ears, start to soften. Sometimes so subtly you barely notice it at first, and sometimes in a sudden drop that feels almost surprising, like something just let go without warning. And that is not your imagination, that is your system responding to a new signal, a signal that says it is safe to release, safe to soften, safe to stop holding. And this is where many people begin to feel the first real signs of change. A slight tingling, a warmth, a natural urge to open their mouth wider, or even a spontaneous yawn, which is one of the body's most powerful reset mechanisms. And if that happens, let it happen. Don't suppress it. Because that is your body completing a release cycle that may have been interrupted for years. And the more you allow these micro-releases, the more your system begins to learn a new baseline. One where tension is not the default. One where your jaw can exist in a state of ease instead of constant readiness. And this is not just about comfort. This has real, tangible effects on your daily life. Because when your jaw relaxes, your entire nervous system begins to recalibrate, your sleep improves because your body is no longer stuck in a subtle fight mode, your headaches begin to fade because the pressure around your temples decreases, your face feels lighter, less rigid, and even your thoughts can feel clearer because tension is no longer feeding into that loop of internal pressure, and this is the significant value most people overlook. The jaw is not isolated, it is part of a larger system, and when you unlock it, you are not just relieving pain, you are changing the way your body processes stress, the way it holds emotion, the way it returns to balance, and as you continue to listen, as you stay present with these sensations, you may begin to notice something else, something subtle but powerful, the realization that this tension was never permanent, it was just practiced, repeated, reinforced. And anything that is learned can be unlearned. Anything that is held can be released. And tonight, that process is already in motion, whether you fully believe it yet or not. Now something deeper begins to happen. Something that goes beyond simple awareness and starts entering the level where real transformation occurs. Because up until this point, you've been noticing, observing, allowing small shifts. But in this phase, the system starts to reorganize itself from within. And this is where many people experience what feels like an unexpected release, not because they forced it, but because the accumulated pressure finally finds an exit. And you may feel it as a sudden drop in your jaw, like the muscles just gave up holding all at once, or a wave of warmth spreading from your cheeks into your temples, or even a slight pulsing sensation near your ears. And while this may seem unusual, it is actually a sign that circulation, nerve signaling, and muscular tension are all beginning to recalibrate together. And here's the significant value most people never understand. Your jaw is directly connected to one of the most important regulatory systems in your body, the vagus nerve pathway, which plays a major role in calming your entire nervous system. And when your jaw remains tight, it subtly keeps that system in a semi-activated state, like a background alert that never fully turns off. But the moment your jaw begins to soften, that signal changes. Your body interprets it as safety, and when your body feels safe, it begins to heal, it begins to restore, it begins to come out of survival mode and into regulation. And that shift alone can impact not just your jaw, but your sleep quality, your emotional balance, your focus, and even your energy levels throughout the day. And this is why some people report feeling unexpectedly calm or even slightly emotional during a release like this, because the body is not just letting go of muscle tension. It is releasing stored patterns that were tied to that tension, patterns of holding back, patterns of control, patterns of silent endurance. And as those patterns loosen, you may notice subtle urges arising, like the desire to take a deeper breath than usual, or to open your mouth wider than feels pravichni, or even to stretch your neck or roll your shoulders without thinking about it. And these are not random impulses. They are your body completing unfinished movements, completing cycles that were interrupted when the tension first began forming, and allowing these movements, even gently, can accelerate the release process in a way that no external method ever could. And here is something powerful you can do right now to deepen this shift even further. Place one hand lightly just below your ear where your jaw hinges, and the other hand on your opposite shoulder, creating a subtle cross-body connection. And as you breathe normally, don't try to change anything, just let your awareness rest between those 2 points. Because this position helps your nervous system integrate both sides of your body, encouraging balance between tension and release, between control and surrender. And as you stay here, you may begin to notice a subtle synchronization. Your breath becoming more natural, your jaw feeling slightly heavier or looser, your tongue adjusting its position without effort. And this is where the real transformation begins to anchor. Because your system is no longer just experiencing a temporary release, it is learning a new baseline, a new pattern where holding is no longer the default. And this is critical. Because lasting change doesn't come from one moment of release. It comes from the body recognizing that it no longer needs to return to the old pattern afterward. And the more your system experiences this state of ease, even briefly, the more it begins to prefer it, to choose it automatically over tension, and over the next hours and into the night. This is where the most noticeable changes often occur, because as you fall asleep, your body continues processing in the background, and instead of entering the usual cycle of grinding and clenching, it begins to explore this new state of relaxation, and many people report waking up after a shift like this with something they haven't felt in a long time: a quiet jaw, a rested face, a noticeable absence of that dull pressure that used to greet them every morning. And even if the change is not absolute immediately, even if there is still some residual tension, the intensity often decreases significantly. And more importantly, the pattern begins to break, because once your system has experienced release, it now knows it is possible. And that awareness alone weakens the old loop. And here's the deeper truth that gives this process its real power. Your body is not designed to stay locked. It is designed to flow, to adapt, to release and reset continuously. And the clenching you've been experiencing was never your natural state. It was a response, a learned pattern that persisted only because it was never interrupted at the right level. But now that interruption has begun, now that your system has received a new signal, the path forward changes completely. And from this point on, every moment of awareness, every breath of allowance, every time you notice your jaw and let it soften instead of forcing it, you are reinforcing a new reality. One where your body no longer fights itself in the night. One where your jaw can finally return to what it was always meant to be, a point of expression, not suppression. A place of ease, not resistance. And as this continues to unfold, you may start to realize that what felt like a physical problem was never just physical at all. It was a doorway into a much deeper level of release, one that is now opening wider with every second you allow it. And now you arrive at the most important phase of this entire experience, the part where everything begins to settle, integrate, and transform into something lasting. Because what you have felt so far, whether subtle or strong, is only the beginning of a deeper recalibration that continues long after this moment ends. And this is where most people either lock the change in or unknowingly allow the old pattern to creep back. Not because the release didn't happen, but because the system needs reinforcement, not through effort, but through gentle awareness and trust. And here is the truth that gives you real power moving forward. Your jaw is not something you need to fix anymore. It is something you now understand, something you can communicate with, something you can support instead of fight. And that shift alone changes everything. Because when you stop resisting your body stops resisting you. And from this point forward, you will begin to notice small but meaningful differences that signal real transformation is taking place. You may catch your jaw during the day and realize it's not clenched like it used to be. Or if it is, it softens much faster the moment you notice it. You may feel your tongue naturally resting in a more relaxed position without you thinking about it. Your breathing may feel deeper, more natural, less restricted. And when night comes, something even more powerful begins to unfold. Because your body now carries a new reference point, a memory of what it feels like to not hold. And as you drift into sleep, that memory guides your system away from the old grinding pattern and toward a state of rest that your jaw has been seeking for a long time. And this is why many people experience the biggest shift not immediately, but over the next 1 to 3 nights. Because the body is integrating, recalibrating, choosing a new baseline. And even if there are moments where the old pattern briefly returns, it no longer feels as strong, as automatic, as permanent. Because something inside you now recognizes that it doesn't have to be that way anymore. And here is where the significant value deepens even further. This is not just about your jaw, this is about how your entire system learns to release instead of hold. Because the jaw was simply the most noticeable point of tension, but the pattern existed on a larger scale. In your nervous system, in your habits, in the way you process stress and emotion. And as this one area unlocks, it creates a ripple effect. Your shoulders may feel lighter, your neck may carry less strain, your thoughts may feel less compressed, and even your emotional responses may begin to shift, becoming less reactive, more fluid, more grounded. Because tension is no longer feeding into that cycle the way it once did. And this is where true transformation happens, not in a single dramatic moment, but in the quiet consistency of your body choosing ease over effort, softness over resistance, and flow over control. And you don't have to force this process. You don't have to monitor it constantly. All you need to do is return to awareness when it feels natural, to notice your jaw from time to time, and gently allow space between your teeth, to breathe without trying to change your breath, to trust that the work has already begun and continues even when you're not thinking about it. And if at any point you feel that subtle urge to yawn, to stretch your jaw, to take a deeper breath, let it happen, because those are the signals of release continuing, of your system completing what it started. And as the days pass, you may begin to realize something that feels almost surprising. The absence of something that used to feel constant, the absence of that tightness, that pressure, that unconscious holding, and in its place, a sense of ease that feels natural, effortless, almost like it was always meant to be this way, because it was. And this is where everything comes full circle. Because what you experienced was not something added to you, it was something removed, something that no longer belonged, something your body was ready to let go of the moment it was given the right signal. And now that signal has been received, now that the pattern has been interrupted, your role becomes simple, not to control the outcome, but to allow it to continue unfolding. And before this ends, take one more moment to bring your awareness back to your jaw. Just notice it, without judgment, without expectation, and see if there is even the slightest difference from when you started. Maybe it feels softer. Maybe there is more space. Maybe it's simply more relaxed than before. And whatever you notice is enough, because it means something has already shifted. Something has already begun. And that is all that is needed for transformation to continue. And as you move forward from here, carry this with you, not as a technique, not as something you have to remember perfectly, but as a quiet knowing that your body is capable of releasing, of resetting, of returning to balance in ways you may have never thought possible, and that you are not stuck. You were never stuck. You were simply waiting for the right moment, the right awareness, the right signal to begin letting go. And that moment is now. And as you step into the rest of your day or your night, know this deeply. Your body is on your side. It is not working against you. It is always seeking balance, always moving toward ease when given the chance. And you have just given it that chance. So trust it, allow it, and let it continue doing what it was designed to do. And here is the message I want you to carry with you. A message not just for your jaw, but for every part of your life. You do not have to hold everything together to be okay. You do not have to clench to stay strong. You do not have to carry tension to prove your resilience. True strength is found in your ability to soften, to release, to trust that you are supported even when you let go. And tonight, as your jaw rests, as your body settles, as your system recalibrates, allow yourself to rest too, because you deserve that ease. You deserve that peace. You deserve a body that feels like home instead of something you have to manage. And this is your return to that state. Gently, naturally, beautifully unfolding. One breath, one release, one moment at a time.